Okay, good morning, everybody. Okay, thank you for your patience. We are on Mem Tesam and Aleph 49, 49A. 49A. The last thing we were discussing on Friday was the idea that we don't do mitzvos in a bundled up fashion. We don't do mitzvos chavilos. We don't bundle up mitzvos. Um, that's what the Gemara says, because it looks like some explain if you multitask in mitzvah, then it looks like it's a load. You want to get over with
What?
the load. Therefore, that's why we have certain halachas like by Sheva
Now
Brachot.
what?
By Sheva Brachot,
Come.
you see, we use 2 cups of wine by Sheva Brachot.
Yes.
1 cup of wine that the leader who says the Birkat HaMazon, he does it on 1 cup of wine. He leads the Birkat HaMazon. He holds a cup of wine. Joseph, when you get married, you'll see it happening at your Sheva Brachot. Someone, the one who's leading the Sheva Brachot, will hold the cup of wine in his hand throughout the Birkat HaMazon. He says Birkat HaMazon on a cup of wine. And then after he finishes the Birkat HaMazon, before he says Bar Geffen, you have another cup of wine, which is handed out to the 6 brachot of Sheva Brachot. And then the one who led will say his Bar Geffen on his cup of wine. We'll be using 2 cups of wine. We don't want to use the same cup of wine for the Sheva Brachot and also for the Birkat HaMazon. We don't want to bundle it up, because it shows you, because there's a concept, we want to be sensitive to a certain concept. We don't want the people to think that, give off the impression, even when we're doing a mitzvah, that our action, the way we're doing the mitzvah, it's a load. It's hard, it's a load, and we want to just get finished with it. Therefore, we have certain halachot, you don't run out of a synagogue, because then you make it look like it's a load if you run out of a synagogue. And also we said another halacha, that when you say a bracha, you're not supposed to say a bracha. Good morning, Morris. You're not
Morning.
Morning. You're not supposed to say a bracha very fast. But then if you pray fast, you know what you're saying? You're saying a statement as if it's a load, I want to get over with it. So therefore, the Gemara says that sensitivity is also that when the Chachamim, when you institute a bracha, if you have 2 concepts, you wouldn't conclude a bracha with 2 different concepts, 2 different ideas, because you're like loading, that means you're like loading up the bracha with multiple things. You're concluding the bracha with multiple things instead of giving, and therefore it looks like I'm just loading. I just want to load it up. I want to say a lot of things. I want to multitask, and that's we don't group things together. Rather, usually we rather give each thing its own separate time and space, because it's not a load for us. That's one understanding of why we don't group mitzvot together. There's another reason that's given, that when you group something together, it's difficult, Tosfot says, it's difficult to put proper focus in each one, because you're doing 2. I'm working on two mitzvot simultaneously. So by doing each one separate, not bundling up, it also gives you time and focus to focus on each one and give each one the proper intent and kavanah. So that's the idea of the Gemara. And therefore, the Gemara stated on Mem Tesam and Aleph on 49a, that there was Rabbah, we had the Gemara Rabbah, and that's where we're going to start from today. Rabbah bar Avuna. Rabbah bar Avuna, it's 10 lines, about 12 lines from the top, about 10 lines before the lines get live. The first word of the line is Yisrael. 49a. Rabbah bar Avuna ikla lebei Reish Kaluta. Rav bar Avuna came to the house of Reish Kaluta. Reish Kaluta was the head of the exile, Reish Galuta, the language of Galut, Galus. He was the head. Reish is Rosh. He was the head of the Galut. Pasach b'chadav v'sayim b'karti. He opened up the Birkat HaMazon with one theme, one idea, but he concluded, let's say he opened up with Ayusel the idea of Hashem, he spoke about Yerushalayim, or he spoke about Yeshuas Yisrael. One idea, the salvation of the Jewish people. He spoke about Yerushalayim in the beginning, but he concluded with two ideas, V'sayim b'tarti. He concluded Baruch Atah Hashem, and he concluded that Hashem is Moshiach Yisrael and Bonei Yerushalayim. He concluded with two ideas. So Rav Chisda was not happy. Amar Rav Chisda, Gevurda lemechtam b'tarti, is it something powerful and special to conclude with two ideas? You're not supposed to include the two different things. Therefore, he was critical, and he said, you're making a mistake. You're not supposed to conclude the bracha of Bonei Yerushalayim with Baruch Atah Hashem, Moshiach Yisrael Bonei Yerushalayim, because you're concluding with two ideas. Gufa, Rebbe Omer. Rebbe says, Ein chotmin b'shtayim. Rebbe says, you're not supposed to conclude a bracha with two different ideas at the end of the bracha. Esevei Levi l'Rebbe. So Levi questions Rebbe's statement. Rebbe, you went on record, you said you do not conclude something, you do not conclude a blessing with two ideas because it's like grouping things together. It's not appropriate. So he says, Esevei Levi l'Rebbe. Al ha'aretz v'al ha'mazon. We say in the Birkat HaMazon, the second bracha concludes, Baruch Atah Hashem, al ha'aretz v'al ha'mazon. We thank Hashem for the land and for the food. And it's interesting, that's how people will interpret that bracha. But it's two different things. One is for the land of Israel, and one's for the food. So how could you do that? You're grouping multiple ideas together. And we said we don't want to bundle things up. And meaning to say that the chidush of Rebbe was that to conclude a bracha with two different ideas is also a problem. It's also under the concern of grouping things together. That was his chidush. That you look at grouping two ideas at the end of a bracha is also a problem. Also it's related to the idea of don't grouping things together. So, but how could Rebbe say that? It's undisputed idea that the bracha of Birkat HaMazon, the second bracha concludes Baruch Atah Hashem al ha'aretz v'al ha'mazon. So you have two different ideas. You're concluding with two different ideas. Is it clear? Everybody have the Gemara's question clear? Joseph, is it clear the Gemara's question?
Yeah, you can't have two blessings for two different, I guess, themes.
You can't conclude a blessing, one blessing, any blessing cannot be concluded with two different things because you're grouping multiple things together, and it falls under the category we're not supposed to do mitzvot in multitask simultaneously, and therefore this is also having two different, thanking Hashem for two different ideas to conclude a blessing with thanking Hashem for two different ideas is not appropriate. That's what the rabbi said. The Gemara's question is, what do you mean? You're telling me it's not appropriate, but we do it every day. We find the Birkat HaMazon concludes with multiple ideas. We have a blessing number 2, No Delecha, which concludes Baruch Atah Hashem al ha'aretz v'al ha'mazon. And it's interesting that the Gemara did not have a problem with having the text of the meat of the blessing, the inside of the blessing, to have multiple ideas. That's fine. The text that whatever you're saying within the blessing could have multiple ideas. The Gemara specifically, the issue is that you can't conclude the blessing with multiple ideas. You can have multiple ideas within the blessing. And therefore, that's why sometimes certain blessings open up with a baruch and ends with a baruch, because there's multiple ideas. Therefore, we'll have a baruch in the beginning and baruch at the end. It's like a long blessing. It's not all one theme. Therefore, we can have a baruch in the beginning, baruch at the end. But yet, when you make, at the end of the blessing, when you conclude a blessing, the conclusion cannot have, Rabbi Yehuda Nossis cannot have multiple things in the conclusion. The conclusion, the Baruch Atah Hashem is the conclusion of the bracha. That's the chasimah. That's the conclusion, like we're going to say, Gemach Sima Tova Ksiva v'Chasima Tova, which people soon Elul is coming, supposed to start wishing people that they should be inscribed for a good year and sealed for a good year. That's Chasima, conclusion. That's what the Rebbe said. You don't ein chosmin. You don't conclude the blessing, which is the Baruch Atah Hashem. You don't conclude it with two ideas. And Levi questions his statement because we see that it's unanimous that we say al aretz al mazon. So it seems that we do conclude a blessing with multiple ideas. That's the Gemara's question. Avraham, is it clear? Very good. We got a good shake of the head. I know he's driving. Very good, Avraham. The Gemara says, by the way, the shake of the head is very powerful because if you agree to someone's negativity with the shake of your head, you violated the prohibition of Lashon Hara by shaking your head to negative talk. Shaking your head is powerful, so don't think it's not powerful. So the Gemara says, it's not a problem, the Gemara says. Because what does it mean when you say Baruch Atah Hashem ala aretz v'ala mazon? You're not really thanking Hashem for two different things, for the land and for the food. Rather, the intent is eretz. You're thanking Hashem for the land that provides food. Eretz the mafkat mazon, which means to say, it seems that you're not thanking Hashem for just the generalization that Hashem gives us the land of Israel, which would be the land of Israel, which would incorporate parts of the land that produces fruit, parts of the land that doesn't produce fruit. Rather, we're being more specific by saying Baruch Atah Hashem ala aretz v'ala mazon. We're saying, we're thanking Hashem for the land that provides fruit. So it's one idea. What am I thanking you for? What am I thanking God for? For the land that provides fruit. So therefore we can look at that as one theme. We're thanking for the land of Israel for the land that provides fruit. So it's not that I'm saying thank you for two independent things. It's like somebody bought you a car. So you say, thank you for the car that drives me to the store. I'm thanking you for the car. It's one thank you. I'm thanking you for the car that drives me to the store. It's not that I'm thanking you for two different things. It's one thank you. So the Gemara says, Levi says, I have another conclusion of a bracha. We have when you have grapes, when you have a kazayas, an ounce of grapes or olives or dates or figs or pomegranates, and the 7 species that Israel is known for, you conclude the bracha Baruch Atah Hashem ala oretz v'ala peros, or ala oretz v'ala perot. So you seem to be thanking Hashem for two different items, for the land of Israel and for the fruit of Israel. Sounds like two different things. So the Gemara says, because as you know, the land of Israel if you just say the land of Israel, let's say there are things that don't give off fruits in the land of Israel, right? There's mountains or whatever. So it's independent, the land and the fruits. So it sounds like you're thanking for two different things. So the Gemara says you should know over there also it's the same intent. Al eretz the mafka perot. We're thanking Hashem for the land that gives off fruit. We're not just thanking Him for the land of Israel as a generalization and another thank you for the fruit. Rather, for the land of Israel that gives off fruit. Now, there's a commentary that Slach, who's Noda Yehuda, who asked the question, what is the Gemara's question? Every time you ask a question, It has to be that based on my knowledge until now, I don't have an answer. I have to go ahead and ask the question. But if I have an answer, if I know the answer, I won't ask the question. The Gemara just a moment ago told them that the meaning of the bracha al haaretz al hamazon does not mean two separate ideas. It's the land that gives no fruit. So when we say, so what's this question? How do we say the bracha al haaretz al perot? Sounds like two different things. No, it's obvious the answer is going to be it's the land that gives off fruit. The same way that before it was al haaretz that gives off mazon, it was one theme, the land that gives food, the land that gives fruit. So why, and that's what he's going to answer. What's the eretz mafka perot? The land that gives off fruit. So what's his question? It's obvious that will be the answer. So that's the question that one of the commentaries asked. Something to be looked into. You know, they address the issue, but I just want to bring out the question. Now the Gemara Levi asked Rabbi another question. Okay. We say on Yom Tov, how do we conclude the fourth blessing of the Amidah? The fourth blessing of the Shemona Esrei concludes, Baruch atah Hashem mikadesh Yisrael v'hazmanim. Excuse me, that Hashem sanctifies the Jewish people, He's made us holy, and He's made the Zmanim, and the times, the holidays, holy days. They're called holidays. Holy days. Holidays is from the word holy days, right? And so we see it says it's two different ideas the Gemara is asking. It's Mekadesh Yisrael. Mekadesh, God sanctifies the Jewish people. And you would say that God sanctifies the Jewish people through the Torah, right? The Torah brings us holiness and so on and so forth. The mitzvot we say when you say a bracha on your tefillin, you said today, bracha to Hashem. You sanctify us with your mitzvot. So there's Mekadesh Yisrael. And there's another concept that Hashem made holy the holidays, the day of Pesach, the day of Sukkot, the day of Shavuot, the holy day. So it's two different things. We're thanking Hashem for that, for sanctifying us and sanctifying the holidays. So the Gemara's question is, so we conclude with two different ideas. So the Gemara says, Yisrael v'kadshenu l'Rosh HaChadoshim. When you say Baruch atah Hashem, mikadesh Yisrael v'hazmanim, that you sanctify the Jewish people and the times, what really you're referring to is really you're thanking Hashem for mikadesh Yisrael, for sanctifying the Jewish people, that Hashem, what does that mean? You sanctified the Jewish people, you made holy the Jewish people, that they are the ones who make the holidays. What do you mean they make the holidays? They are the ones who set the calendar based on the moon, the sighting of the moon. They go to the Beis Din, the court, and they decide when Rosh Chodesh is, when the first of the month is. And based on when Rosh Chodesh is, then you know when the holiday. Let's say the Torah says Pesach is on the 15th day of Nisan. But 15th day from Rosh Chodesh, we have to know when Rosh Chodesh is. Every month, the Jewish calendar can have 29 days or can have 30 days, depending on the sighting of the moon. If you saw the moon on day 30, so then day 30 is Rosh Chodesh. And therefore, the month is a 29-day month. If you did not see the moon on day 30, therefore the moon they'll have to proclaim on day 31 Rosh Chodesh, and therefore the previous month was a 30-day month. Every time we have one day Rosh Chodesh, that means that the previous month has 29 days, and therefore there's one day Rosh Chodesh, that means the 30th day is Rosh Chodesh. When we have 2 days Rosh Chodesh, that means that the 30th is the first, that means the first day of Rosh Chodesh is the 30th of the month, and the second day of Rosh Chodesh is the first of the month. So the Gemara continues, and the Gemara says it's one thing. it's Mekadesh Yisrael, Hashem, it's referring to it that you're thanking Hashem who sanctified the Jewish people, that made us holy, that gave us this mitzvah of we create the calendar. It's based on us. Yisrael V'katshinu L'zmanim. We sanctify, it's based on the Bezdin, it's based on the court. The Levi asks another question. We say on Rosh Chodesh, Baruch Atah Hashem, V'kadesh Yisrael V'Roshei Chadashim. Sounds like two different ideas. Now again, the question of the slach would apply. Isn't it obvious? It's not two ideas. It's V'kadesh Yisrael, who sanctifies the month, the new moon, who sanctifies Rosh Chodesh. But again, the Gemara asks the question, and the Gemara says, Yisrael V'katshinu L'Rosh Chodashim. It's referring to the Jewish people. When you say Baruch Atah Hashem Mikadesh Yisrael V'Rosh Chodashim, it's not two different ideas. It's Mikadesh Yisrael. We're thanking Hashem. We sanctify the Jewish people who are Mekadesh, who are that they are the ones that they make Rosh Chodesh. Mekadesh, you sanctify the Jewish people that they have the ability to declare, to decide when Rosh Chodesh is. That's the difference between Rosh Chodesh and Shabbat. The Shabbat, God made, it's already established by God every week when Shabbat comes. We, the courts, don't have to do anything. It's automatic. However, when it comes to Rosh Chodesh is dependent on the court. Whenever the court says, that's not, now we don't go by the court. We have an established calendar that we use that's been established. So the Gemara says, what do you mean? What do you, Mikadesh Yisrael? We have another case, another bracha. Mikadesh HaShabbat, HaShabbos Yisrael V'Azmanim. If Yom Tov comes down on Shabbat, if Yom Tov comes on Shabbos, what do you do in the Shemona Esrei? If you include the bracha, let's say today was Yom Tov. Let's say yesterday. Better, yesterday was Shabbat, was Shabbos. If yesterday would have been the Yom Tov of Shavuot, you would have included Baruch Atah Hashem Mikadesh HaShabbat, HaShabbos, Yisrael V'Hazmanim. So you're talking about two different ideas, because Mikadesh HaShabbat, Shabbos is not the court. So Mikadesh Hashem is Mikadesh HaShabbos, Hashem sanctifies the Shabbos, and the Yisrael V'Hazmanim is that the Jewish people sanctify the holidays. So you're concluding the bracha with two different things. And you told me you don't supposed to group things together. It looks like you're doing the mitzvah as a group, as if it's a multitasking. I think, by the way, also it could be the same person. I wonder if that's maybe the reason also why you're not supposed to marry. The times that people were allowed to marry two wives, not to marry the two wives in the same week, might also have to do with this, possibly. When we say, Ein ma'arvim simcha b'simcha, we don't mix one simcha with another simcha. I wonder if it has to do with also grouping the mitzvahs together. I have to look up, there's a Tosfos somewhere. So the Gemara says, Mikadeh, like Yaakov, he first married 1 week, and then he married 1 year later, and he waited a week, not to bundle them together. Now, Mikadeh Shashavos Yisrael V'Azmanim. So we're having two different themes. So Rebbe's answer is Chutz Mizu. This is unique, but yet it's not going to be a question on my overall statement. Why not? Umayshna, why is this different? Like Manishtana Halayla Zeh. Why is this bracha unique? That it seems like it's concluding with two different ideas. Hashem sanctifies the Shabbos, and Hashem sanctifies the holiday. The Jewish people who in turn they sanctify the holidays. So it's two different ideas. So the Gemara says, "Hacha chadehi." Really, Mikadesh HaShabbos, it's true. There's an idea that Hashem sanctified the Shabbos, and Hashem sanctified the Jewish people who are sanctifying the holidays. But it's really one theme of Mikadesh. that Hashem is the one who gave that sanctity to the Shabbos and gave the sanctity to the Jewish people who are sanctifying the holidays. So even though the Shabbos and the Jewish people sanctifying the holidays is two different ideas, one's talking about sanctification of the Shabbos, and one's talking about the sanctification that the Jewish people go ahead, that they are sanctifying the holidays. But the one thread in those two ideas is that it's Hashem, it's God that's Mekadesh. God is the one, so therefore the fact that it's all about God, Baruch atah Hashem, Mekadesh, Hashem is Mekadesh, the Shabbos and the Jewish people that have sanctified the holidays. So therefore the rabbis felt it was all right, it was not a problem to go ahead and group those two items together, because they're really one theme, because it's really, the theme is God's Mekadesh, God is sanctifying. Even though it's referring to two different things, two different items that God is sanctifying. That's what the Gemara says. It's really one sanctification of God. It's a sanctification of God to do two different items, but it's one being. It's one theme that Hashem, we're thanking Hashem for his sanctification. However, Hasam Tarti, by Birkat HaMazon, to conclude Bonei Yerushalayim, that Hashem will, and Moshiach Yisrael, that Hashem is Moshiach Yisrael, and Baruch Atah Hashem, Moshiach Yisrael, Bonei Yerushalayim, and building Jerusalem. So he felt that that's similar to two different ideas. Even though the Gemara did say, there's an opinion, the Gemara said that through the building of Yerushalayim comes the salvation of the Jewish people, because then the Jewish people will come and come back to Eretz Yisrael, Nidche Yisrael Lechanes, but he still looks at it maybe as two different, it's still, if you go ahead and you mention it, Bonei Moshiach Yisrael or Bonei Yerushalayim, it still seems enough that it's still different ideas. One's a more global idea. Hashem is Moshiach Yisrael. He saves the Jewish people, which could be in all generations. Whether Hashem is Moshiach Yisrael, I would say, whether by building through building of Yerushalayim or not building of Yerushalayim. Hashem saves the Jewish people in the Galut. Every generation they come to destroy us. So therefore, he feels that it's not appropriate to conclude Moshiach Yisrael, even though included in Moshiach Yisrael might be the building of Yerushalayim, but Moshiach Yisrael is seems to be a much more general thank you. Hashem is Moshiach Yisrael. It's not specific for the building of Yerushalayim. See, if Moshiach Yisrael would be specifically that it means Moshiach Yisrael, Hashem is Moshiach Yisrael to build in the building of Yerushalayim. So, but I think maybe the Gemara is holding that it's still too much of a generalization that implies other ideas of salvation of the Jewish people, and therefore maybe it's not appropriate to conclude the bracha of Bonei Yerushalayim with Moshiach Yisrael of Bonei Yerushalayim. It could be that the other rabbi we found in the Gemara, who did conclude Moshiach Yisrael Bonei Yerushalayim, maybe he held the fact that they were connected with each other, that's enough that it's not a problem to conclude it's not like two different things. Because we said that the salvation of Jewish people is connected with the building of Jerusalem, but then the people will come back. So, but the Gemara feels, Levi feels that it would be a problem, that it would be a problem of concluding with two different things, and therefore you cannot conclude Moshiach Yisrael and Bonei Yerushalayim for the bracha of really Yerushalayim. So the Gemara continues. The Gemara says, that's what the Gemara says, Hacha chadi, aval hasam tarti, kol chada v'chada ba'ape nafshe. Each one is a concept by itself, by Moshiach Yisrael. Hashem saves the Jewish people. and Bone Yerushalayim, and he builds Yerushalayim. Okay. The Gemara says the time of mine. What's the reason why you cannot? It says Ein chosmin b'shtayim. You're not supposed to conclude with two different ideas. The Gemara wants to know why not. What's the issue? Time of mine. My time that we don't conclude with two things, like we said until now. You don't bundle the mitzvah together. Now, we said also, by the way, the Yalkut Yosef Keter Shulchan Aruch from Yerada Yosef, he says it's good to take off your shel rosh with your weaker hand. But if you're writing, it's better not to take off your shel rosh with your right hand. You take off your shel rosh with your right hand, that means you're like taking off the shel rosh with strength. But when you take off the shel rosh, you're going away from a mitzvah. When you take off your tefillin on your head, you're going away from a mitzvah. When you leave a mitzvah, always leave a mitzvah slowly. Don't run out of a shul. There's a mitzvah to run to shul in the morning because you're rushing. You come into shul relaxed. You don't want to run into shul. But running towards the shul, your shul's a couple of blocks away, to run right before you get to the shul, right before you enter, you run up. There's a mitzvah to show. By running, you're showing your enthusiasm, your appreciation, your zerizus. But when you're taking off your tefillin of the shel rosh, you're leaving the mitzvah. Don't leave the mitzvah with strength. Don't pull off the shel rosh. Take it off with your weaker hand. If you're writing, take off the shel rosh with your left hand. We find that when the Jewish people left Vayisu Mahar Hashem, when they left the Har Sinai, the mountain of Sinai, it says Ketinoka Barech Beis Sefer. Children run out of school, run out of yeshiva because they're children. But they left the mountain of Sinai too fast. They went too fast. It should have been difficult for them to leave. It's like Hashem, the holiday of Shmini Atzeret. We're coming up not so long to Sukkot. It's like Hashem says, the holiday is almost over, but koshalai pidaschem. It's hard for me to separate that closest that we have. But we've just celebrated the holiday, this holiday of Sukkot. Hashem said, I want another day. Shmini Atzeret is a separate holiday. It's not the holiday of Sukkot. Shmini Atzeret, even though outside the land of Israel, we sit in a sukkah, we don't say Leishev Sukkah, but it's not, it's a separate holiday. In Israel itself, there's no holiday. No one's sitting in a sukkah on Shmini Atzeret in Israel. And the idea is, Hashem said, I want another day. It's hard for me to leave after being so close. And that's how we should feel in our relationship to Hashem, that it's hard to leave. Therefore, Hashem said, I want one more day, Hashem says. And that's the holiday of Shmini Atzeret. And therefore, on Shmini Atzeret, we say Shechianu. In the Kiddush, and when the lady lights the candles, we say Shechianu. Because Shmini Atzeret is a new holiday. In contrast to Shvi'i Shel Pesach, the seventh day of Pesach, we do not say Shechianu in the Kiddush with the lighting of the candles. Because the seventh day of Pesach is a continuation of the holiday of Pesach. You have Chol Hamoed in the middle, then you have Shvi'i Shel Pesach, seventh day of Pesach. You do not say Shechianu because it's not a new holiday. It's another day that was forbidden in Malacha. It's just a continuation of the holiday of Pesach with more restrictions than we had during the Chol Hamoed. Is that clear, everybody? Okay. So the Gemara says, "My Havi'ala." What is the bottom line? We brought two different opinions, whether Boni Yerushalayim, whether you're allowed to conclude Moshe Yisrael u Boni Yerushalayim, as one of the rabbis actually concluded with both. What's the bottom line regarding this bracha? Because also the Gemara also brought a machloket that one rabbi says that you only conclude, the Tanakama said you have to conclude the Binyan Yerushalayim. You have to conclude the bracha of Baruch Atah Hashem Bonei Yerushalayim. And the other rabbi said you have choice. You could conclude the bracha Bonei Yerushalayim or Moshe Yisrael. So now what's the bottom line? What's the law? So the Gemara says, my Haviola, what's the law? Omar Rav Sheshes. Rav Sheshes says the following. Pasach berachim al amcha Yisrael. If you started the bracha with rachem al amcha Yisrael, you started the bracha Hashem, have mercy on the Jewish people. Then choseim, you can conclude with Moshe Yisrael, Baruch Hashem Moshe Yisrael. Now, we said before that the third bracha of Birkat HaMazon is the bracha on Yerushalayim, right? It says, Hara Tov Hazeh is Yerushalayim. So definitely you had to have included Yerushalayim within the bracha, within the meat, the middle of the bracha. But here the Gemara is saying, what was your opening statement? You know, the fact that what's line number 1 and what's line number 2? It's true. Line number 2, it might be, if line number 2 was Yerushalayim, but you're going to have to mention Yerushalayim. But if line number 1 was Rachem al Amcha Yisrael, then you have a right or then you conclude the bracha with Moshe Yisrael, because the conclusion of the bracha has to mirror the beginning of the bracha. So whatever you conclude has to, like, let's say for instance, the bracha of Kel HaKadosh. We conclude Baruch Atah Hashem, Kel HaKadosh. How does the bracha begin? Atah Kadosh, Hashem HaKadosh. The bracha Atah Chonein L'Adam Da'at concludes Baruch Atah Hashem, Chonein Da'at. How does it begin? Baruch Atah Hashem. It begins Atah Chonein L'Adam Da'at. It begins Refuah Refe'enu Hashem V'nei Refei, concludes Baruch Atah Hashem Rofei Choleim Meisel. So the ending needs to mirror the beginning. But so he says, but if you pasach berachim al Yerushalayim, if you opened up a rachim al Yerushalayim, then you conclude the bracha with bonei Yerushalayim, because you opened up Yerushalayim, so then you conclude with Yerushalayim. However, Rav Nachman Amar, Rav Nachman argues. What does Rav Nachman say? And then you'll see that little letter over the afilu of Rav Nachman's statement, Rav Nachman afilu, that's the halacha. Rav Nachman Amar afilu pasach berachim al Yisrael. Even if you opened up with rachim al Yisrael, then Hashem should have mercy on the Jewish people. Nevertheless, what do you conclude? Chosein b'bonei Yerushalayim. You conclude with bonei Yerushalayim. That's the way you have to conclude the blessing. Okay, and that's how we do it. Mishum shene'emar. It says, now, Mishum shene'emar. Now, what is he trying to address? He's going to be trying to address the following issue. How could you conclude bonei Yerushalayim if you opened up with Rachem no al Amcha Yisrael, have mercy on the Jewish people? So you opened up with mercy on the Jewish people, and you concluded with bonei Yerushalayim, which seems that the building of Yerushalayim is not a match to the opening of Rachem al Yisrael. So the Gemara says no. That is exactly the bonei Yerushalayim. The building of Jerusalem is the mercy on the Jewish people, because that will bring the Jewish people back. Shum shenema bonei Yerushalayim Hashem. Hashem is the one who builds Jerusalem. And the way Rashi learns the pasuk Nidche Yisrael Chanes, and then after Hashem, through the building of Jerusalem, then the Jewish people that are scattered throughout the world, all over the world, they will be gathered, as we say, right? We talk about the gathering of the people from all four corners of the world. And it's interesting. Here we are. We are living in the time of, middle of the rebuilding of Jerusalem. And what happens after the building of Jerusalem? Jewish people are coming from all over the world. Much more people are coming from all over the world. And that's happening through the building of Yerushalayim. We should know, according to this, that the building of Yerushalayim and having Jerusalem is so important to the bringing of the Yeshua, the end of the exile. I mean, it could be, if we wouldn't have Yerushalayim, Hashem somehow would give us Yerushalayim. So God gave us Yerushalayim through 1967. He gave us Yerushalayim. Hashem has his ways to give us Yerushalayim. So that's why you could conclude the blessing, Baruch Atah Hashem Bonei Yerushalayim, because that will be, the building of Yerushalayim is the answer to how we'll have mercy on the Jewish people. The Jewish people will be Rachim al Yisrael. There'll be mercy on the Jewish people through the building of Yerushalayim. And it's interesting, according to this pshat of Rashi, that you would go ahead, that seems to be what we do. We open up Rachim na Hashem Yisrael Amecha Ve'al Yerushalayim Yirecha. The first thing we open up the blessing is we don't open up a Rachim al Yerushalayim. We open up with Rachim na Hashem Yisrael Amecha. And you can ask the question, why don't we open up it's true that Boni Yerushalayim would do the trick. You could collude Boni Yerushalayim when you open up Yisrael Amecha, because we said they're interconnected. But why did the rabbis institute us just saying Rachim na Yerushalayim? Why did the bracha begin with Yerushalayim? Why did it need to wait? And why do you have to open up with Yisrael? And because they're related, that you get credit. You could include Boni Yerushalayim. Why did you open up directly with Yerushalayim? It could be, I like to suggest, because the rabbis wanted us to get the message that we need to recognize that our salvation of the Jewish people, Rachim na Hashem Elokeinu Yisrael Amecha, that the Jewish people will have be mercy on the Jewish people. They will come back as a result of Yerushalayim. So by opening up with Rachim na Hashem Elokeinu Yisrael Amecha, we're recognizing that the mercy on the Jewish community will be extended through the building of Yerushalayim. If we go ahead and we look at the Shulchan Aruch, I want to take out the Shulchan Aruch in Kuf Peiches Siv Dalet. Kuf Peiches Siv Dalet, he says the following: 188, paragraph 4. He says the text of the bracha is Rachim Hashem Elokeinu. Or O Nachameinu Hashem Elokeinu. He says, and you conclude Boni Yerushalayim. You don't change. He says you open or you conclude Brachat or Menachem Sion Bevinyan Yerushalayim. That's how we do conclude on if you see on Tisha B'Av, we have a special text in the Amidah. See the language over there. And you don't change from Shabbos to weekday. Both Shabbos and weekday, you say the same text. Meaning, the Chofetz Chaim explains, he says, if you said in weekdays Rachem, You didn't say in Rachim, you say it also on Shabbos. Even though on Shabbos we generally don't ask for things on Shabbos, but this is the text of the bracha always, and therefore it's no problem by saying the same text in Shabbos as well. Similarly, harachamans. We know in the Birkat HaMazon, we say harachaman shachlona bracha meruba b'bayit hazeh. Shem should give blessing to the house. We say harachaman fanaseinu b'chavod. Shem should give us panasa in an honorable way, honorable parnasa, nice parnasa. We ask for a lot of things in the harachamans. They're beautiful. And I think the Chafetz Chaim writes somewhere that really you're supposed to answer Amen, maybe from the Magen Avraham, after each harachaman. Rachamani mochalinu aved, Amen. Racham yisbach b'shmayim v'aretz. Rachamani shachlanu brachum v'bayis. You know, each haman, each Amen, after each harachaman, like a separate little blessing, little request that we're asking from Hashem. You can answer Amen after each one. He says you're even allowed to say on Shabbos. You're allowed to say harachamans on Shabbos. Even though it's something that was later on instituted, because the fourth bracha of Hatova Meitiv really ends a Miko Tuv Li'olam Ayech Hasreinu. That ends the bracha. Or the Sfardim may say V'chol Tov, however the Sfardim end that bracha. Once you start the harachamans, that's not the bracha anymore. The bracha has concluded. The fourth bracha of Birkat HaMazon is already. Where is it over? Where does the blessing end? Where the harachamans begin. But Ashkenazim it's of Miko Tuv Le'olam Hayich Hasreinu. That ends the blessing. Then there's the harachamans. The Chafetz Chaim says these harachamans were instituted later. Since they were instituted later, so you might have thought that you cannot say these harachamans on Shabbos. And I think they quote, and maybe the Vilna Gaon maybe didn't say the harachamans on Shabbos, but our minhag is that we do say it. Why do we say it? So the Chafetz Chaim says, because since we always say it throughout the week, it became like part of the Birkat HaMazon, and therefore it's not looked at that I'm asking for personal needs, special requests for personal needs on Shabbos. And therefore, I'm able to, if somebody says, Birkat HaMazon is too long for me, then I would tell them, then stop when you get up to the harachamans. And if you feel it's too long and you're going to do nothing, you're not going to say anything, to end right over there, right when the harachamans are about to begin. Say if you feel it's too long, end right over there. That's what I would say to the person. But obviously, it's appropriate that they should at least say a harachaman for the balabayit, to give a bracha to the balabayit, or the hero of stone to the balabayit, but a special bracha as a guest gives to a host. But I would say, if necessary, that's where you could be lenient from the harachamans, especially on the Shabbat. But really, in general, we shouldn't give that leniency. These are beautiful requests, harachamans, and they're beautiful. And we should take advantage of saying it and saying it with kavanah. The rabbis instituted for a reason, and we should not make light of it. In the Shulchan Aruch, in Siman Kuf Pei Zayin, regarding Kuf Pei Ches, Halacha Gimel, let's see what he says about some other things that we said. Trying to see Gimel, Kuf Pei Zayin. See, in the Shulchan Aruch, he has about the different diyukim, different things that we're able to analyze, different things in the text of the blessing, and he talks about talks about some of the things that we're going to see soon. You know, we mentioned last week about the importance of saying Brit and Torah in the second bracha of the Birkat HaMazon. And if you did not say Brit and Torah in the second bracha of Birkat HaMazon, you would have to repeat the Birkat HaMazon. You have to. So I hope everybody, when they said Birkat HaMazon this day Shabbat, I hope your Birkat HaMazon is much more sensitive to the things that are within the bracha of Birkat HaMazon. Sensitive to when you said yesterday, Al Britcha Shechasamta B'B'Serenu. You thank Hashem about the Brit, the circumcision, because it was a student mitzvah of circumcision, and Hashem gave us the land of Israel, gave Avram the land of Israel. And in the merit of circumcision, we get the land of Israel. And La Torah Shalim Adatanu, it's through the Torah, through the learning of Torah, through the keeping of the Torah, is that we got the land of Israel, and that we're going to continue getting the land of Israel. So therefore, that's why in the second bracha of Birkat HaMazon, we talk about Torah Shalim Adatanu, Brischa Shechasamta B'Serenu. We got to thank Hashem. When we talk about the land of Israel, we can't just talk about the land of Israel. We got to talk about the things that bring us to the land of Israel and keep us in the land of Israel. And that is the learning of Torah, the keeping of the mitzvot. Torascha shalim adetanu. The brischa shechasamta b'seinu. It's through the bris that we got. Hashem gave Avram Eretz Yisrael. And Bezrat Hashem, hopefully, through the keeping of the mitzvot, that everybody, the Jewish people, will be more careful in keeping the mitzvot, keeping the mitzvah of circumcision, which Baruch Hashem, the Jewish people are keeping, but the problem is all the not-religious people are not keeping the mitzvah of circumcision. And Torah, with the increase of Torah, that merit will get Eretz Yisrael in the fullest way. We won't have any problem from the Arabs, we won't have any problem from other countries tying our hands. And that merit will get the real Eretz Yisrael in its fullest. We'll have total independence of the rest of the world. And that's why we should keep that in mind when we say the second bracha of the Birkat HaMazon. I want to wish everybody a great day. And hopefully now we have a better appreciation of Bonei Yerushalayim and how that will bring the salvation of the Jewish people. People will come back to Israel. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see everybody tomorrow.
Thank you, Rabbi. Have a good day.
Thank you. Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you, Mom. Yeah. You can't see him? He left.